Hello, and the purpose of this video is to present part 2 of the What Would a Revolution Look Like in Sweden? And in the previous video, I discussed what a revolution would look like in Sweden, animated by the perspective of anarcho-capitalism, right? But in this video, I am going to discuss what a revolution would look like in Sweden, but animated by the perspective of radical ecology, right? So, and just so that you guys know, on March the 7th, there will be 2 radical ecology related videos released on this channel. The first one is radical ecology reading list and discussion, and the second one is radical ecology literature, right? So I'm going to be discussing that in this in those 2 videos. Those are pre-recorded and they will come on. So in February the focus will be on anarcho-capitalism, and in March the focus will be on radical ecology, right? Now in January I have made a whole series of videos, the official, political statement breaking with Jehovah's Witnesses, which is based on the perspective of dissident Marxism. So I've covered dissident Marxism. I've covered I have covered in the previous video and in the 4 videos that are coming anarcho-capitalism in February, and in March there is 2 videos that are going to cover radical ecology besides this one. So just so that you guys know, that is coming. So what would a radical ecology inspired revolution in Sweden look like? And for this, what I was thinking is that maybe what could happen is something like what happened during the Battle of Seattle in November 1999, when they had something called the Turtle and Teamsters Alliance, right? Which was an alliance of the labor unions and the environmentalists, and they led an uprising in Seattle against the neoliberal economic policies economic policies sponsored by the Clinton administration in context of World Trade Organization and World Bank. So back then, that was the era of neoliberal globalization. So it was the first anti-capitalist uprising since the fall of the Berlin Wall, right? So the Berlin Wall fell in November 1989, and in November 1989 you had the Battle of Seattle, the uprising in Seattle, which was the first anti-capitalist the first anti-capitalist upsurge of significance since the fall of the Berlin Wall 10 years later, right? So let's say that something like that happens right here in Sweden. Let's say that two parallel movements emerge and merge together. Let's say that on the one hand you have a wave of radical wildcat strikes, right, led by workers, in defiance of the official labor unions, in defiance of laws that prohibit striking. They strike anyways. Wildcat strikes, illegal strikes, massive illegal strikes, right, that are out of the control of the official social democratic union bureaucrats, and out of the control of the government, right? And these strikes paralyze the Swedish economy, right? And the far left is involved in them, right? The far left is involved in them, and the far left gains, the extra parliamentary far left gains ascendancy within this movement. And then on the other hand, let's say that Extinction Rebellion becomes a massive movement, in a massive movement, and then under conditions inspired by the illegal wildcat strikes, then Extinction Rebellion leads massive demonstrations, right, demanding immediate action to reverse, to immediate action to declare climate and ecological emergency, as it says on their website. And I'm going to read some stuff from their website, just to see where we could go with this. But yeah, let's say that, right? So extinction, a massified extinction rebellion on the one hand, and then a wave of radical wildcat strikes, right? And let's say that the radical wildcat strikes are inspired by, let's say that there is a major financial crash, and let's say that the Swedish state finds itself in the middle of a financial crisis. Let's say that there is insolvency in the banking sector and the state, right, which forces the state then to cut or suspend, I don't know, payments, welfare payments, or whatever. Let's say that it's a major economic crash, and the condition of the workers is deteriorates in context of that crisis, so the workers strike illegally, right? And again, as I've said in the previous videos, my definition of revolution is that, number one, revolution is revenge against the state, and the revenge against the state is motivated by accumulated social hatred for the ruling class. And in Sweden, the ruling class is an alliance between parliamentary cretinism and bureaucrats, right? The parliamentary politicians and the bureaucrats protected by police. So let's say that in context of an economic crisis, there is this massive wave of strikes, and then extinction rebellion too. So what happens is that as I said before, in the wildcat strike movement, illegal wildcat strike movement, the far left would gain ascendancy, right, and influence. And by the far left, I'm saying, let's say my friends at Marxist.se, right? Let's say that they grow, right? In context of that wildcat strike movement, my friends at Marxist.se, the Trotskyists, grow, right? And the massive extinction rebellion demonstrations overwhelm the police. And because extinction rebellion is a nonviolent movement, they're not going to harm the policemen. They will simply disarm them and put them away somewhere where they cannot interfere, right? Let's just say that all they have to do is round up the police. There is always more. If it's a massive demonstration, the riot police will be overwhelmed and in disarray. All you have to do is just capture them and disarm them and put them away somewhere where they will not interfere, right? That's all you have to do with the police in a if you use nonviolent civil disobedience, right? Which is the premise of extinction rebellion. Let's just go with their thing, right? Nonviolent civil disobedience, right? And again, revolution is revenge against the state. Revolution is illegal. Revolution is illegal, which ties in with the perspective of extinction rebellion, that nonviolent civil disobedience, right? Civil disobedience is illegal, right? So this is a massive movement led by Extinction Rebellion, demanding, declaring a climate and ecological emergency, which is premised upon illegal action, right? Because civil disobedience is illegal. And the workers, on the other hand, the wildcat strikers, will be acting against, because in Sweden, the workers don't have the right to strike. The right to strike is restricted, right? So like certain workers are not allowed to strike, and there is restrictions on what they can do and when they can strike. Okay, let's say that in a wildcat strike situation, all those laws are ignored. So the workers are acting in terms of also civil disobedience or civil disobedience against laws that prohibit striking, right? So basically both movements are defying the state. And at the point where, let's say, the Extinction Rebellion mass demonstrations overwhelm the police, capture the policemen, disarm them, and put them away, then again, the parliamentary cretinism and the bureaucrats are left defenseless, because the only thing protecting them is the police. So once the police are taken out of the way, then I suppose the delegates from the wildcat strikers and delegates from the Extinction Rebellion-led movement would just give the government an ultimatum: either resign, or we will simply seize power, right? So they will force the statsminister to resign, and he would have no choice because the police is not there to protect him. So it will be a situation like in Argentina in 2001, perhaps, when the government fled in a helicopter. Something like that maybe will happen. The statsminister will flee in a helicopter or something, go away, and then all you have to do is seize the parliament building. Right, seize the parliament building, and at that point, the parliamentary cretins will probably flee like rats. So what will be left? Maybe they'll allow the Green Party politicians to stay as long as they don't interfere and as long as they collaborate. They'll be allowed to stay. But yeah. So let's see. What are the demands of Extinction Rebellion? Let's go by the demands of Extinction. Let's say that then, okay, because one of the things that Extinction Rebellion is calling is one of the demands of Extinction Rebellion is to go beyond politics. Governments must create and be led by the decisions of a citizens' assembly on climate and ecological justice. So let's say that the mass demonstration of Extinction Rebellion seizes the parliament building. Right, the parliamentary cretins flee like rats, so they seize the building, and in that building they form the Citizens' Assembly on Climate and Ecological Justice. Right, and then that assembly elects a committee of public safety, and we'll bring back the committee of public safety that we had in the previous video. He's back, right, and this time and another Swedish Robert Speer emerges out of this Committee of Public Safety, which is elected by the Citizens' Assembly on Climate and Ecological Justice, right? And then this Robert Speer, instead of being animated by anarcho-capitalist ideology, is animated by radical ecology, right? So then he has the power to rule by decree. So the first thing he does is, he suspends. The first thing they do is they suspend the regular government, right? They declare the government dissolved, the parliament and the government dissolved, right? And they issue a decree giving the Citizens' Assembly on Climate and Ecological Justice legislative power, and giving the Committee of Public Safety elected by it executive power with the power to rule by decree, right? And the reason they're given the power to rule by decree is because the situation is a climate and ecological emergency, right? So the first thing the Committee of Public Safety does is to declare a climate and ecological emergency, right? And to communicate the urgency for change, right? As it's in the Extinction Rebellion website. I mean, and Extinction Rebellion may or may not agree with what I'm saying here, right? I'm not a representative of Extinction Rebellion or have anything to do with Extinction Rebellion. I'm simply like going by their website to try to imagine what a radical ecology revolution would be like, right? So the Committee of Public Safety, this Radical Ecology Committee of Public Safety, acts immediately to halt biodiversity loss and reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero within 3 years, right? 3 years. In the website, it says by 2025. But let's say that the revolution says this is 2022, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay, 3 years. Nah, 3 years is too long. 2 years, right? So they have to implement radical and drastic measures. Let's say, too, that the Committee of Public Safety invites members of the anti-nuclear movement, which it exists in Sweden again, the anti-nuclear movement. I'm part of a news. I'm part of a. I signed up to the newsletter of the anti-nuclear network in Karlstad, where I live. So I know that the anti-nuclear movement exists again. So let's say that this the Committee of Public Safety, the Radical Ecology Committee of Public Safety, invites members of the anti-nuclear movement. And also let's say that they invite people from the Animal Liberation Front in Sweden is not really that well organized. But let's say that they invite some people involved with the Animal Liberation Front into form ad hoc committees. One committee dedicated to the dismantling of factory farming, or imposing a moratorium on factory farming. And the second one, an anti-nuclear committee, which will be tasked with phasing out nuclear power as soon as possible, right? And they would be empowered to force, to seize the nuclear power plants and shut them down, and then organize the process of dismantling them. And then the other ones, the Animal Liberation Front people, their subcommittee would be empowered to take action to end factory farming, take action to end ban the use of animals for research in labs and what have you. So take the different demands of the animal liberation movement to take action to implement them, while the main Committee of Public Safety would be concerned with issues of climate and ecological justice, biodiversity loss, and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, right? So what would be some measures that they will definitely, one of the things they would do is to significantly restrict use of private automobiles, right? So private cars will be severely restricted, their use, and probably the taxes on gasoline and diesel will be quadrupled, right, for private cars. In order to reduce their use and make it more expensive for people to use private cars, encourage people to use public transportation and human-powered vehicles. That would be one thing, to try to remove cars from the picture as much as possible. Yeah, and I don't think that they would outright confiscate cars, at least not at first, but they would significantly take action to curtail the use of private cars, because private automobiles are a major contributor to chlorofluorocarbon emissions, so greenhouse gas emissions. So you want to significantly and drastically reduce the use of cars, private cars, right? You want to keep it at the level of public transportation, preferably clean forms of public transportation, like you can have electric buses or natural gas powered buses or whatever. Yeah, so that would be one thing. And what does Extinction Rebellion say in their website? We are in the midst of a climate and ecological breakdown. We are facing an uncertain future. Our world is in crisis and life itself is under threat. Now is not the time to ignore the issues. Now is the time to act as if the truth is real. The science is clear. We're in the midst of a mass extinction of our own making, and our governments are not doing enough to protect their citizens, our resources, our biodiversity, our planet, and our future. This crisis knows no borders, race, or ethnicity, and while wealth may offer some protection, it is all but temporary. The clock is ticking, and if we don't succeed in uniting to protect our planet, everyone will be impacted. You, your family, everyone and everything you hold dear. And yet every crisis contains the possibility of transformation. So every crisis contains the possibility of transformation. You could apply that to, for example, a scenario where there is a massive economic crash following the breakdown of the quantitative easing house of cards, and then bubbles or whatever that are come as a result of quantitative easing. Let's say all that crashes, the economy crashes. There is a crisis of insolvency in the state and the banking system. So that crisis contains the possibility of transformation, because it triggers, for example, massive wildcat strikes by workers, influenced by the far left, the Trotskyists, maybe, hopefully, my friends at Marxist. And then, on the other hand, Extinction Rebellion, mass rebellion against the damage to the climate, against the climate emergency, the climate crisis. So so the possibility of transformation is contained in all these crises. The economic crisis contained in context of the climate crisis, right? And this Committee of Public Safety, this Swedish Robespierre, they would definitely, I'm sure, they would definitely shut down the immigrant detention, definitely, and free all the immigrants that are trapped in there, refused asylum seekers, undocumented persons, stateless persons, persons whose identity cannot be verified, whatever. All these people that are languishing in the limbo of the immigrant detention gulag archipelago. Well, it's not a gulag. They don't force the immigrants to do forced labor, but it is an archipelago of detention centers. It's not quite a gulag, but it is an archipelago of detention centers. They would probably be shut down, and the people trapped in there would be freed. Probably the Swedish Robespierre will issue a decree, putting a moratorium on deportations, for example, and a ban on imprisoning immigrants in the detention centers. The detention centers will be shut down, right? And probably another decree could be issued, maybe saying that all migration board decisions are legally non-binding opinions, maybe something like that, just to and make it in that way you don't have to. In the anarcho-capitalist scenario, I would say that the Committee of Public Safety acts to abolish the migration board. In this scenario, the Extinction Rebellion Committee of Public Safety will just issue a decree saying that the decisions of the migration board are legally non-binding, and that's it. And shut down the detention centers and put a moratorium on deportations, right? But that's secondary. That's secondary because the main thing is the environment. So the Earth is getting hotter. CO2 levels are rising, and we're in the midst of the sixth mass extinction, the Anthropocene extinction. We are facing two equally critical issues: biodiversity loss and climate change. Both are having unprecedented dire consequences, not only on us as humans, but on every living being and ecosystem on the planet. It is beyond a doubt that human activities are triggering these changes. So we're gonna, in this Committee of Public Safety, this Swedish Robespierre, animated by a radical ecology ideology, will act to take take action to halt or significantly curtail human activities that are triggering damage, climate change. So businesses will be told, businessmen will be told, either you implement measures to significantly reduce your carbon footprint in your business, or your business will be taken away from you, and we will impose the reforms required in your mode of operation in order to ensure that your carbon footprint is reduced to the minimum. And also, overall, you want to drastically reduce the ecological drag cost of economic activity, right? Especially in the industries, probably they would impose a moratorium on industrial activity until each single plant and industrial production facility is inspected to ensure that it creates the least pollution possible. And that would imply that then there will be it would be kind of like the lockdowns during COVID-19. There will be an industrial shutdown until each of these infrastructure of production is inspected to ensure that their contribution to toxic gases is toxic gases is reduced. And also issues such as what to do with waste byproduct of industrial production. It creates waste. Impose systems of recycling, maybe, or cleanup of waste. That's very important. There will definitely be a blanket and absolute ban on fracking. That would be banned, absolutely, totally banned. Fracking will be banned. And just like in the same way, the nuclear power plants will be shut down and dismantled. Yeah. The possibility of transformation. We're standing on a precipice. We can acknowledge the truth of what we are facing, or we can continue to kick the can down the road and allow the effects of a heating planet to have even more detrimental outcomes on all living beings. We are already locked into a certain amount of warming and biodiversity loss, but there is still time to change this story. So that is the concern of this Citizens Assembly on Climate and Ecological Change, which would meet in the occupied parliamentary building after the parliamentary cretins have fled. And the police have been disarmed. The stats minister would have fled in a helicopter, like in Argentina in 2001 or something like that. So radical measures will be implemented to change the story, right? We are paving a different path. The world we want to live in requires a culture that is healthy, creative, resilient, and adaptable. We're facing tough choices, and so far, these catastrophes have been met with little effort from governments and institutions to change the trajectory we are on. So, tough choices, have to be made, right, in order to implement an ecologically sustainable political economy, right? An ecologically sustainable political economy is going to require, as I said, the inspection of all the industrial production infrastructure to ensure, that processes that create pollution are, drastically restricted. Private cars will have to be, measures will have to be taken to drastically curtail their use. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't really believe that you can, force people to be vegetarian or whatever, but I'm probably sure that, as a result of the efforts by the Animal Liberation Subcommittee to, to shut down factory farming, there might be a shortage of meat products or whatever, and that's going to be an outcome of it. And that's there might be maybe they'll impose some taxes on meat products or whatever to make it more expensive for people to buy them and what have you, and make a vegetarian alternative cheaper. But that's a lifestyle thing. I don't think that really impacts the climate too much, but I mean, that's a tangent. That's not that important. But because the solution is consumerism, whatever. Like, consumerism is not the solution. I mean, just consuming like green, pursuing a green diet or whatever, it's not the solution. You need substantive solutions to, that affect the model of industrial production, to make it as non-polluting as possible. Extinction Rebellion is made up of people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, cultures, and political affiliations, people like you coming together to create a different entity, a different story. We know the crisis we are facing, and we want to change the future. This fight is all of ours, and we all need to be willing to stand up for the truth and face it together. So, people from different backgrounds, cultures, and political affiliations, right? So perhaps some of the parliamentary cretins in the parliament won't flee when the building is seized by the Citizens Assembly on Climate and Ecological Justice. The only thing I would say, though, is that those people from the parliament that stay are to be told that they cannot interfere or sabotage the process, because otherwise they will be removed, right? And that includes the green politicians, because Greens, they need to. The Greens will be presented with a sort of the same kind of, the Greens will be told, either you get with the program or you're out, So, and the program is a radical program. not reformist or electoral, but radical action. So the Greens were going to have to, either get radical or get lost. Yeah. So yeah, nonviolent civil disobedience. This is a very important. This is what I said. When the Extinction Rebellion mass demonstrations, the mass movement overwhelms the police will not be harmed. They will simply be disarmed and put away, right? And in the case the army acts, and in the Swedish army, it's not that powerful, But let's say that the Swedish army sends tanks into the streets or whatever, I don't think they're going to be able to, overwhelm. I mean, a couple, three or four, a few tanks, I don't think is going to be able. If there's a massive demonstration, I don't think a few tanks is going to make a difference. So more than likely, it's the same thing. Just grab the soldiers, disarm them, and put them away. Nonviolent. It's nonviolent, right? Nonviolent civil disobedience. Civil disobedience. Right? Revolution is illegal. Yeah. Revolution is the ultimate act of civil disobedience. It is illegal. Wildcat strikes that defy laws that prohibit striking are illegal. Civil disobedience. Right? With over 1,206 groups in 86 countries, we are already making a difference. Extinction Rebellion has been credited for compelling legislation, pushing governments to take action, and shifting the public discourse on the climate and ecological crisis through our creative, artful, sustained, nonviolent protests all over the world. Right? But in this case, the compelling legislation would be passed not by the parliamentary cretins, but by the Citizens' Assembly on Climate and Ecological Justice, right? Which would be the premise of the Committee of Public Safety, where the ostentable Swedish rubber spear animated by radical ecology would express himself politically. But yeah, I mean, what I'm proposing is far more radical than what Extinction Rebellion talks about in their website, right? But because Extinction Rebellion is not revolutionary, but I am giving a revolutionary twist to Extinction Rebellion. What if Extinction Rebellion was revolutionary, and not just concerned with symbolic protest, but if it was really revolutionary? We follow in the footsteps of many who have come before us, from India's independence movement to women's suffrage, the civil rights movement, the Arab Spring. History has shown us time and time again that nonviolent protest does work as a powerful means to bring about change. And yet there are no guarantees. As rebels, we know that tomorrow's reality is today's concern. A world ravaged by climate change and biodiversity loss is one that will greatly affect all of us. So yeah, how do you reverse biodiversity loss, right? So that would be another concern of this, committee. I mean, they will have to come up with a decrease in actions that will significantly, contribute to the halting of the biodiversity loss now, right? Immediate action, as much as whatever it takes. Nonviolent protest, right? We're saying that this is going to be a nonviolent revolution. I mean, a revolution doesn't necessarily. I mean, there are examples of nonviolent revolution in other places. I think what is it called? The Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia in 1989 was nonviolent largely. So yeah, nonviolent revolution is possible. But I think that nonviolent revolution, though, sometimes, yeah, you want the revolution to be nonviolent, but you need to be prepared to, do things like round up policemen and disarm them, and round up, soldiers and disarm them. That, you need to be able to do those things, and you might have to form a militia of some sort in order to, for example, occupy, places where, police and military keep, stashes of weapons or whatever. You can't leave that unguarded, because then they could just, the police and the military could reconstitute themselves and act to like remove the Citizens' Assembly on Climate and Ecological Justice from power. So yeah, Yeah, I mean, in the military, the military, like I said in the previous video, it might be necessary to seize the generals, the generals and the flag officers, because being trained military, they're dangerous because they could organize a coup, right? And you don't want that, because then if a coup succeeds and restores the old order, then there will be no action taken to reverse, the harmful effects of climate change at a time of urgency, because it is necessary to do something now. So, yeah, we have no other choice. We rebel against the systems that got us there. We rebel for the future we want. We rebel because it is our responsibility to act. We have no more time to waste. Nothing is impossible. We can still write the story we want, and we will. We as individuals can make a difference collectively. We will do this together, transform the world, create lasting change, and build a better future for all. Yeah. It always seems impossible until it's done. And that was a statement by Nelson Mandela, right? It always seems impossible until it is done. Nelson Mandela, right? So yeah, revolution in Sweden seems impossible, right? Right now, I mean, you look around, people are apathetic, they don't care, they're like glued to their phone. They're interested in, hedonism, and they're not really interested in revolution. It seems that way, right? But that can change. Yeah. I know. What seems impossible could be done tomorrow. So, according to Nelson Mandela. So yeah. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on what, I don't know, a revolution in Sweden inspired by radical ecology would look like. Yeah. Yeah. The radical ecology revolution wouldn't be as drastic and as the revolution, the anarcho-capitalist one, because the anarcho-capitalist revolution would require things like the elimination of the Social Democratic Party and other measures. I mean, because the anarcho-capitalist agenda is to eliminate the state. So, I mean, there would be an agenda of radical privatization and abolitions. In a radical ecology revolution, that is not the emphasis. The emphasis is more on radical measures to stop the climate change, right? To reverse the damage of climate change, to reverse the ecological damage that is creating climate change, and to drastically reduce the carbon footprint, and the environmental and the overall environmental drag cost of economic activity, right? Because in a revolution animated by radical ecology is more about radical measures as opposed to like a structural adjustment, which is a separate issue, or political settlements. What would be the role of the I forgot one thing. What would be the role of the wildcat workers and the far left elements, that animated that? They probably will, if I know my Marxist friends correctly, they'll try to move beyond just the radical ecology revolution and turn it into a workers' revolution. So, but that will be the subject of the third video. The third and final, what would a revolution look like in Sweden, will be the video dealing exactly with that. A workers' revolution. What would a workers' revolution look like in Sweden? Right? So that will be the next video. Bye bye.